Hello there, and thank you for joining me in the middle of football finals month as we consider the interplay between sport and community values. Collingwood Football Club President Eddie McGuire is often in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. But there is a lesser-known side to McGuire, who champions a number of social causes in Melbourne. One of these is Magpie Nest. It's a housing program that Collingwood runs alongside the Salvation Army. Now, as an avid Swan supporter, I was keen to meet Eddie, and we spoke just before the recent controversy over remarks made about sports journalist Carolyn Wilson. So I then went back to try to make sense of this contradictory character. Eddie McGuire's passion for the Collingwood Football Club goes back a long way, to the very first time his dad took him to a Magpies game.
The whole sense of excitement gripped me. I was holding onto my dad's hand, and it was when I walked inside and got into position and the team ran onto the ground that suddenly the whole place just enveloped me, lifted my heart out of my chest almost, and that's when the moment I felt like I belonged. This was it.
Side by side they stick together to uphold the Magpie's name.
Some people might have the organ going in a cathedral. This was my cathedral of dreams.
Yeah, so there was a bit of a religion began.
It was, yeah, it was. But it was a religious experience in feeling part of a community. Welcome to Victoria Park.
Yeah, that's right.
For a Sydney Swans supporter. Don't faint, OK? I'll hold you up.
It's a bit worrying. I'll cope just. Eddie's commitment to the Pies took him from being a fan to president of the club in 1998. At the same time, he was managing his meteoric rise from humble journalist to highly paid TV and radio host.
What a big week it's been in footy.
Including a short stint as CEO of Channel 9.
Mate, very good.
Very good, you reckon he's back?
I hope so, mate. We'll find out.
While juggling his two careers, the man known as Eddie Everywhere pulled the club out of financial and on-field difficulties to create one of the most successful football clubs in Australia.
And it's a goal!
In recent years, the club's also stepped up its charity work. Why do it? What's the drive for Collingwood? I mean, I've got to ask, what does Collingwood get out of it?
For us, in 2016, why? Because, to be perfectly honest, we're a professional football club and regarded as the biggest sporting club in Australia, but we're a community club. So we decided when, at the turn of the century, that our club had lost its way. We were on the wrong side of racial vilification. We really stood for nothing. We're a bit pumped up. We're a bit like the Wizard of Oz with this big voice, but really a bit squeaky, really behind the scenes. So when we had no money, we decided that this was going to be one of the pillars of our club, that philanthropy and looking after our supporters was going to be central to what we're all about. We had a bad season last year with injury, missed the finals, and at our AGM, when we spoke about what we do with the homeless, we got a standing ovation from our supporters.
Collingwood Football Club has a proud Catholic working class heritage. In times of high unemployment, the club supported the community by opening soup kitchens and giving free tickets to workers.
We were formed because it was the biggest slum in Australia. Collingwood was the depths of depravity for underclass working people. The football club was established in 1892 to give them something in their lives. And straight away we had one of the biggest crowds at our games. Within 4 years we'd won the premiership. So we were seen as you have to have them. They probably didn't want us, the Silvertail clubs, and that's where we are now, 124 years later. They still don't like us, I don't think, but they have to have us in a lot of ways. We like to have a bit of chip on our shoulder.
Born in Australia, Eddie was the son of Irish and Scottish migrants. He grew up in working-class Broadmeadows in Melbourne's north.
I won the tax lotto of life. I had two unbelievable parents, and along the way I had some fantastic teachers. 1 year to the day from my dad stepping on the boat in Southampton, they moved into their own home in Broadmeadows. This was unheard of. So for them, they really believed to be the lucky country, and they just drilled it into us. You've got the chance, away you go.
You didn't have a lot of money though, did you?
No, we didn't have it. We didn't have money, and it was always tight. When the factories were laying off, it was a horrible time. in the whole community.
Eddie went to the local Catholic school and played footy every day. Even as a young boy, he was ambitious, with a competitive streak that saw him thrive on the football field.
I remember going up to an under-11s pie night at St Dominic's Broadmeadows, and an old-fashioned hot gospeling football coach by the name of Alan Killiger got up.
That bloke's pushing in the back, you've got to prop yourself and cop it.
And I had this burning desire as a 9-year-old that, I wanted to get going. And he got up and he said, whatever you do in life, be the best at it. You won't always succeed, but if you try your hardest. And this was just music to my ears, and we all jumped up and thought, how good's this?
Winning is important for Collingwood, but it's not everything. Christmas lunch for the homeless has become a club tradition, and the McGuire family volunteers to help every year.
It's become our family Christmas day, and actually gives you so much meaning. I mean, we take so much from it. Don't think that we're doing this out of the goodness of our heart. We take so much out of that day. It is the whole spirit of Christmas. They don't have to barrack for Collingwood, by the way, but they come down.
You sure?
But we sing the song. That's the second hymn of the day, the second carol. Oh, come all ye faithful, followed by good old Collingwood forever.
For 7 years, they've missed the finals. This year, God will be on their side.
We had a wonderful ceremony blessing of the scarves. We had the rabbi, the Protestant, the Catholic, the Salvation Army, the Muslim. We had them all lined up, and they're all doing whatever their blessing was, and everyone was holding up their scarf. We'll do anything for a win at Collingwood. We'll pray to anyone. It was just good fun. Bob McGuire, the legendary Bob McGuire, he's a Collingwood paid-up member. He was my chaplain at school, believe it or not.
Was he really?
Yeah, and another.
That explains a lot.
It does. He does. He was hugely influential, and so these things they do. They spill in. Yes, it is a sectarian football club, but it has so much, hopefully, of the goodness of religious experience that comes through. Whether it's the fervour, whether it's the dedication, whether it's sticking through hard times and side by side. And I'd like to think that that's what the Collingwood spirit is.
Eddie met Salvation Army Major Brendan Nottle at a charity game in 1999. For years, Brendan's led a team of dedicated staff and volunteers to help those in need. A Collingwood supporter, Brendan went on to become the team's chaplain.
I think the role of the chaplain is to keep it real for footballers. I think in my mind it's to be a positive presence around the club. And I think it morphed into an opportunity for me to actually connect the work that we do with homeless people and the football club. So we have quite a few footballers get involved in the life of our work here.
Some of the ones who'd been a bit naughty, we said, well, you better go and spend a little bit of time with Brendan out on the soup kitchens over night time. We get these kids, 6 months ago, they couldn't get a date at the social. Next minute they're playing for Collingwood and they're walking into nightclubs and being given a drink card and it's on for young and old. Yeah. We've all seen it. The money comes and money goes, and kids' lives can go off the track. But those who actually keep their head on their shoulders can go on to great things.
The Salvation Army runs the Hamadava Cafe in central Melbourne. Here, homeless people are offered food and other practical support. Brodie is one of the Collingwood players who volunteers his time.
Cool. I'm out. I came out to this space and to be honest, it is quite a confronting environment, and I thought, what can I do to turn this situation that I initially perceived as, a punishment into a positive, and worked really hard with the guys here and, turn this wall into a nice mural for, people to come and enjoy it. Well, it says dare to dream, so that's just the way that I like to live my life. I never would have thought 10 years ago that I'd be playing AFL football, and it's just an example of, the endless possibilities that life may have, and there's some people here doing it tough, and it's about tough, keeping your chin up, and you never know what's around the corner.
The players' view of the world actually gets broadened because rather than living in this bubble that they can sometimes get caught up in, all of a sudden their hamstring injuries or, difficulties with a sponsor all get put into perspective.
Yeah. There you go, guys.
In 2012, Brendan became aware of the increasing numbers of women who were made homeless as a result of domestic violence. He shared his concerns with Eddie.
We saw a young mum come in here really distressed, and she had an 8-year-old daughter with her, and the mother had escaped a really horrific domestic violence situation, and all she wanted to do was make her daughter safe. And she went to a friend and she said, I have no idea where to go. And so the friend said, look, if you go to a rooming house, you don't need rental history, you just turn up and pay your rent. So she did that, and then she found out that the man in the room next door had been released from prison on child sex offence charges. And so this poor woman was terrified about what was going on, and she came in here completely distressed.
We all had tears in our eyes. We all cried on the day. Brendan got up and we looked at each other. Well, okay, this is where we think we should go.
Collingwood Football Club partnered with the Salvation Army to create a residential program in suburban homes. They called it Magpie Nest.
We opened the Magpie Nest.
Well, I thought I had a really good name. I come up with Bed or Dead. Very dramatic, and I thought Collingwood would definitely go for this, and they said that is the worst name we've ever heard. So they came back with Magpie Nest. So I think it's a really good name because it actually illustrates very clearly what we're trying to do. So it's not just a bed, it's actually putting all of the supports around people that they've often missed out on.
I remember when we first opened up, we had this young woman who had slept rough for 3 years. And she slept on the floor of her bedroom for the first 3 months, like Crocodile Dundee, you know, in that famous scene where he's in New York, he's sleeping on the floor. She was doing this. And I'll never forget walking in, and she had a stuffed teddy bear on the bed, and you go, oh, isn't that nice? And I looked under the bed and she had a baseball bat. And this was this young woman who just wanted some safety, wanted security, wanted to be loved, wanted to be the person she wanted to be. And at the same time, she was still living the fear of what she'd been through for God knows how many years.
The program's now at 35 houses. We have 120 people in that program. They've got access to a lawyer, an addictions worker and caseworkers to help them work through their issues and really start to rebuild their lives.
And to be able to be inside and not out on the streets is just great. Well, to start with, I was actually living up in Mildura, but I had an accident and fell down some stairs and damaged my back, and then the hospital wanted me to come back every 2 weeks. So it was, I will have to stay down here. I was on my own. I'd never been on my own in the streets, and it was very, very scary, and I didn't know what to do. And I just thought, oh, the Salvation Army, you know, I'll go and see about them, and yeah, so that's how I actually got in here.
So how are you going now that you're settled into the house?
Yeah, things are really, really good. I'm getting a lot more healthy, and yeah, it's been really great. Well, I can cook and eat now.
So we're out at one of the houses today just doing a visit. We just pop in and see how everyone's doing, have a chat with them, get to know how things are going for them, and see if we can help them out with the next step that they're taking.
Yeah, the house is a great feeling. It's very safe. That's a really, really, good thing about it is the door's locked behind you. About once a fortnight, they come around just to see how we are all getting along, if there's anything we need. It makes you feel good, it makes you feel human, you know. It really brought me out of my shell, and now I'd like to, do maybe a course or something on counselling, and who knows, maybe in the future I'll be, helping other people.
I think this is a very, very interesting partnership that's taken place. Collingwood Football Club and the Salvation Army, who would have thought? I think one of the things that Magpie Nest shows me is that when elite sporting clubs think beyond themselves as just being a sporting team, and they start to recognise that with their influence and with their networks and contacts, they can actually bring about significant social change.
It's a win all round. For Collingwood, it adds value to their brand, helping to attract sponsors and supporters.
Come on, go Trev. Go Pies!
You know, for grown business people and adults, the pursuit of watching young men run around chasing a footy while it gets us going on a Saturday, if that's the driving aspect of it, it's a bit naff, really. It has to be in the community. We've actually sat at this very board table in the past and board members saying, are we spending too much time, money and energy over here on things that maybe,
social welfare sort of
aren't core business?
And what do you say?
We say, yeah, we are. And we wouldn't be here without it. because that's what this club is about.
But you couldn't be wooden spooners and doing that, could you?
Well, we were.
I know you were for a while before when you came in.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you've got to have a modicum of success.
Oh, you've got to have the success, of
on
course
the field.
And that drives everything. Everything drives everything. You know, the success on the field makes everybody feel better. You get more sponsors. You can do better things.
Go!
When we stand up after a loss and we look at each other and go, well, at least tonight 120 people are sleeping in a Collingwood home, a Magpie Nest home rather than under a tree, then you realise you drive home and you go, well, it was worthwhile. Even though we got beaten by Carlton, it's worthwhile. Even though the Sydney Swans are stealing all that money, it's worthwhile. But that's where it is. That's the broader picture.
You know, in some ways you sound almost like the old version of the Irish Catholic priest who's out there.
Oh, it probably is.
Do you ever think about that?
I do sometimes laugh to myself that it's the parish of Collingwood that I'm presiding over rather than the Collingwood Football Club.
Far from a saintly figure and very much in the public eye, Eddie continues to create controversy. His comments on Adam Goodes in 2013 caused a media storm.
A king-sized episode of Foot in Mouth. Discussing a promotional stunt for the King Kong musical, Eddie McGuire said this on his radio show.
Get Adam Goodes down for it, do you reckon?
The backlash was swift. Last Friday, a 13-year-old Magpies supporter was ejected from the MCG after calling the Swans player an ape. The Collingwood president was praised for his response and apology after the match, but today he was apologising on his own behalf.
Look, I've got to ask you then, I mean, how did you live with yourself in the midst of all that?
Believe it or not, and this is not an excuse, but I was absolutely on heavy-duty painkillers. I was on crutches, and I shouldn't have been at work. In a lot of ways, I was hoping to be a community leader and stand by Adam, and this just momentary loss of mental capability, if you like, and it fell out. And
because it seemed like casual racism. That's what it
did,
seemed
yeah,
like.
which was exactly the opposite.
That you weren't even thinking, therefore you said what was really in your heart.
No, I wasn't thinking because I was thinking of something completely different. What was in my mind was that back in the 70s, that's what would have happened in this situation. You know, on the TV variety shows, they would have come out in an ape suit with a Swans jumper on, and everyone would have laughed. I was making that point that haven't we moved on? Did I make it properly? No, I completely botched it up. But I can at least sit here knowing that in my heart of hearts that I meant the exact opposite, and that I couldn't have apologised any more, and I sincerely apologised. And a lot of people don't know me, so they go, oh yeah, rich white idiot, you know, football, buffhead. Right, you have to cop that.
Well, that is what people do say.
Well, they do, but you know, what can you do about that? You can only live your life, and as we all know, there'll be a time of reckoning, and you'd like to think that people would say, okay, well, let's look beyond that.
A few months ago, Eddie and his siblings decided to donate the family home in Broadmeadows, the house they grew up in, to the Magpie Nest program.
I remember speaking to Eddie about it, and he said, it's not a posh house, but it's a house that has a lot of luck. It sends this powerful message to the people that will end up in their house that somebody that is extremely well known right across the nation is actually concerned about them.
With all of this, frankly, charity work that you're doing, do you think it's sort of giving you a different attitude to faith? Is it reinvigorating it?
Look, I think like every Catholic boy of my age, and probably older, at some stage when vocations came around, you had to think. And boy, did I think quickly on the benefits of not becoming a priest or a brother. As I think everyone did at that stage. I got as far as altar boy, and that was it, and bailed. And look, you know, like everybody at the moment, unless you question just what the role of the Catholic Church is in your world and in your heart. And you know, my brother Frank was the deputy chairman of the investigation into the sexual abuse in the Victorian Parliament, and obviously, you know, living and seeing everything going on, and it just breaks your heart.
Can I ask you a private question? And you don't have to ask me. Do you pray?
Yeah. Do I pray? I know. I still know all the prayers off by heart. I could start Mass for you now and get to the end of it without too much worry. And the way Bob McGuire used to say it, I could do it in 10 minutes for you as well. He used to whip right through. But his belief was always at school was that you'd never keep a kid in at Mass when he could be out playing football. And I subscribe to that theory. I think you do in a different way these days. I probably, as a kid, prayed for, the things that probably arrived in a lot of ways, or you prayed for your mum's health and things like that. And it was more of a cry of despair, I think, as a young kid. Now you reflect on how lucky you've been and the things that have happened in your life.
What's being asked of you.
And yeah, I really do believe in that. What the nun said about to whom much has been given, much is expected. I really believe if you've been given the good cards, you've got to play them well. And maybe that justifies in me some of the extravagance of my life, that I do make good money. I live in a beautiful house, I have a wonderful family. So maybe that's trying to square the ledger up. I don't know, maybe try and get that camel through the eye of the needle after all.
Thanks, Eddie, very much indeed.
Thanks, Geraldine.
Eddie McGuire sort of says sorry for joking about drowning a female football journalist.
A month after our interview, Eddie was in the headlines again.
It was during the Ice Bucket Challenge, raising money for motor neuron disease, that McGuire joked with football figures about journalist Caroline Wilson taking part.
And I'll put in 10 grand straight away, make it 20. And if she stays under, 50.
I'll hold her under it.
And I reckon we could charge 10,000 for everyone to stand around the outside and bomb her. She'll burn you like everyone else, mate. She's like the Black Widow. She just sucks you in.
It was just days after she'd written a column critical of McGuire's role at Collingwood. The media personality has made an apology of sorts.
Are you sorry for those comments?
I'm sorry, but I'm sorry that was the way it was certainly perceived.
I had to go back and talk to him and try to get some answers. Now, since I last saw you, you've been in quite a bit of trouble with the Caroline Wilson controversy. I wonder what it's left you thinking about you.
Look, it's always hard in these situations because I think hopefully over the course of our conversations, you realise what I'm about in this sphere. I mean, we do this. We change the focus of Magpie Nest to victims of domestic violence over the last couple of years because we've seen it. You can say, oh me, oh my, and it was a joke and nothing was intended, and that was the case. But ultimately, when 2 women a week are being murdered in Australia, language does become important. And it was a joke, and it was certainly nothing intentional. There was nothing aimed at women. But it could be perceived as that, and it was felt like that. So it doesn't matter. So what we now learn is that we've taken an evolutionary step in language. So we do that, and we go on from there. I apologised, and the
and have you apologised to her personally?
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it was Caroline Wilson herself said the trouble with Eddie is that he reverts to the personal when he's a bit under attack, and maybe you do that with men too.
Well, look, Cara and I have had a long and interesting history. We're all in the rough and tumble of football journalism. That's the cut and thrust of journalism and commentary in this town in football.
This was her saying that she thought maybe it was time for you to think about succession planning at Collingwood.
Yeah, but Cara, she's written that for 10 years. So that's not an issue. But the point is, everybody in journalism, you know what journalists are like, they're the most thin-skinned people in the world. What I said, and I'll quote it, was, who would be next in? So why don't we get Caroline Wilson? I'll pay 10 grand to see her go in the water. Make it 20. And if she stays under, 50. Stupid.
If she stays under?
No, that was it. You know what it is? It's go jump in the lake is basically what it was. But when in the context of that conversation, when the others jumped in, then it became bullying, I believe. Okay.
Well, that's what she says. She says there's a boys' club, and it's sort of like the boys egg each other on. Women really don't like that.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. So we go, right, okay, in that context, they go, right, okay, yeah, there's a point there.
I might say, if I'd had a couple, because you've had a couple of goes around the block in this, I might say to myself, hey, it's time. You're judging it wrongly. You're getting it wrong. Public tone, very important.
Yeah.
Has it not gone through your head that it's time to go?
No, of course not.
Well, it might have, you know what I mean?
Well,
it could legitimately have. You might have just thought to yourself, I'm getting it wrong and I don't even know I'm getting it wrong.
Look, I've been doing this, Caper, for 30-odd years. When you're on air all the time, and I've got a microphone in front of me, you know, for hours every day, you know, I reckon I've got... I think this is the one I got wrong. Right? The goods one was a complete mistake. And you know what? The only way you learn is from learning from your mistakes.
Melbourne was recently voted world's most livable city. But a recent survey shows that over the last 2 years, there's been a 60% increase in the number of people sleeping rough. The Magpie Nest program is under increasing pressure to deliver more support. Are Eddie's media gaffes damaging these efforts? Do you think any of this controversy affects your Magpie Nest work?
Well, it probably doesn't help. But having said that, it seems to be back to business as usual. I hope people see what we do as being something that's sincere, that we actually are on the ground getting our hands dirty and making a difference. You know, we understand the situation with domestic violence very, very well. It was the last thing on my mind when I made that joke as I was jumping into an ice bath in front of 60,000 people. I wasn't thinking anything at all like that, but I can tell you the next time I will be.
AFL has come a long way since I started supporting it as a 12-year-old in Perth. With recent Indigenous and multicultural initiatives and the launch of the Women's League, professional clubs are breaking new ground. When sport and charity come together, the benefits of the field just might be bigger than the game itself. But for now, as we head into the finals, go Swannies! Next time on Compass.
When I was younger, perhaps I had the idea, oh, we have come here as missionaries and we've got something to give to India. There I found out I had much to learn. It changed me.
Santali language is taught to preserve the culture and the language of the students.
Those who are able to still, they continue working. We don't retire. We just fade away.
It gets into your blood, India, somehow or another.
Into India. Next time on Compass. I'll see you then.